Hi guys, welcome back to another Earthen Rangers video. This is another video on the series of edible, medicinal, and survival properties of wild plants. And today we're going to be looking at a very special plant. As we pan around the camera here, you can see what I call a field of dreams. And for those of you who don't know, this is the plant mugwort. And mugwort has a lot of really awesome properties. I'm really excited to get into this plant. But first, let's take a look at some of these characteristics that we have on the plant going here. There's actually some big differences between the young leaves and the mature leaves. So as we go down here, I'm going to show you first the classic looking leaf of the mugwort, which has some lobed ends on it. And this is the young leaf system going on here. Hi, how's it going? So as you see here, this is a young mugwort. And you can see this classic heavily lobed ends on these long leaves. If you see these leaves out in the wild, go ahead and rub them between your fingers and give it a smell. And it's extremely aromatic, has a very wonderful smell to it. And it can actually be dried and used in small quantities for a spice in cooking things like roots, tubers, meats, and so forth in that primitive situation. So really a fun plant. You don't want to consume this plant in large quantities because it does have a slight toxicity level to it, which essentially means you can eat small quantities of it, but you don't want to be eating large quantities of it. And I definitely recommend any plant that has that toxicity issue, even if it's the slightest amount, definitely drying that plant or cooking that plant before consuming those small amounts. And if you're cooking with it as a spice or seasoning, you're really utilizing those heat properties and really making sure that you're approaching this plant cautiously. So let's go ahead and real quick take a look at a mature plant, and that is this guy right here. And as you can see, it no longer has these lobed ends to the leaves. It's now just a long lancet style of leaf. And when I first started learning this plant over a decade ago, these big ones would really confuse me, and I wasn't sure what they were because I was, again, just solely looking for this type of leaf structure. And so again, this is the young plant, and as the plant ages, it loses those lobes. So we've already talked about the spice aspect of utilizing this plant, but I want to talk about why I call this area a field of dreams. And that is because Native Americans actually used to dry, crush up, and smoke this plant. And it was typically used for a spiritual purpose. So for example, if a shaman of a tribe was trying to seek an answer to a spiritual question, and if he or she was unable to get that answer through traditional meditations, prayer, and other traditions of that tribe, what he or she would do is smoke this plant and hope that the answer to their spiritual question would be answered in their dreams. Because one property to this plant is that it causes very vivid dreams. Now, a lot of folklore says to just take the plant, dry out the leaves, and put it under your pillow and so forth like that, but you're not really going to experience anything like that. And I'm not condoning the smoking of this plant. I'm just giving the educational background behind it. There is a slight hallucinogenic compound to it. I believe it's called thujone. I'm probably completely butchering the pronunciation of that chemical compound. But it's an extremely light property, and this is really just a plant to be utilized as a spiritual tool from the aspect of smoking it. It's not a recreational type plant. So this is a really, really cool plant. One thing that I love about this plant, which is the third property, is that this can actually neutralize the neurotoxin in stinging nettle. So let's say you're walking along a trail and you brush up against some stinging nettle and get those little painful stingers in you. What you can do is you can pick a bunch of the leaves of the mugwort, crush it up into a poultice, so you're exposing those plant oils, and then put that poultice on the stinging nettle that is in your skin. What'll happen is the juices from the mugwort will neutralize the neurotoxin in stinging nettle, and thus it'll no longer be painful. Now, the stingers in stinging nettle have little barbs on them, and they're the size of hairs, so they're very difficult to get out but what causes the pain from stinging nettle is the neurotoxin in them. So this is a really fun plant. Also, if you're doing things like stealth stalking and invisibility, or maybe doing a like hunting invasive species or something in that survival scenario, this is definitely a plant that if it is in the area, you can take leaves off, crush it up, and rub it over your body. And this is what's called a de-scenter. So it'll cover up your human scent, and it'll make you smell more like the natural environment around, which definitely helps if you're doing any kind of stealth stalking and invisibility, and if you're stalking any animals. So a really wonderful plant. Again, this is mugwort, and this is my favorite little grove of mugwort, the Field of Dreams. Beautiful area. Definitely check out this plant. It smells amazing. If anything, like I said, just rub the leaves and give it a smell, because it has a wonderful smell to it. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this 6th plant. Is this our number 6? I believe so. I could be wrong though. But thank you so much for joining me on this edible, medicinal, and survival properties series for the mugwort. As always, stay aware and protect.